From the discovery of oil in Nigeria in 1956 and producing 5,100 barrels per day till now, where the country produces around 1.2 to 1.8 million barrels, Nigeria has become Africa's main oil producer. With 18 operating pipelines, Nigeria is also the 11th largest oil producer worldwide. The petroleum industry accounts for about 9% of Nigeria's GDP and for almost 90% of all export value. Along the way, Nigeria joined the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, OPEC, in 1971 and established the Nigerian National Petroleum Company, NNPC, in 1977. Now, the NNPC is a state-owned and controlled company, which is a major player in both the upstream and downstream sectors. But is Nigeria reaping enough benefits from the oil and gas industry? Nigeria reportedly flared about 85.4 billion standard cubic feet of natural gas in the first 152 days of this year, translating to a monetary loss of about $510 million. This figure is the average of the 3% fund meant for host communities allocated in the 2021 Petroleum Industry Act. The NNPC in February reported that the country's gas flare rate was 7.67%. This is Nigeria literally burning money. All this is happening as global demand for gas is on the rise. Recently, the group executive director downstream of the NNPC, Adeyemi, projected that Nigeria needs a refining capacity of about 1.52 million barrels per day to meet its petroleum requirement in the next 4 years. Nigeria does own refineries, but all 4 state-owned refineries have failed to produce any significant output in the past several years. Why has Nigeria failed to boost its oil and gas value chain? Where does the push for global net zero carbon emissions leave Nigeria's petroleum industry? We'll get into all of these issues today on Business Edge. I'm Tolulope, Adeleru Balogun. Welcome. Joining me is Samuel Oyekanmi, research analyst for Nairametrics. Samuel, thankfully we got you on the phone now, so let's get straight into this conversation. Hello, Samuel.
Yes, I can hear you. Sorry.
Oh, fantastic. So let's quickly look at this. The background to all of this is that the issues with Nigeria's oil and gas industry have been visible to both insiders and observers for many decades. And over the years, we've seen a lot of money spent on bringing the sector up to speed, but that hasn't exactly happened. So let's start with the numbers. Where has the Nigerian investment in oil and gas gone? What figures are we looking at in terms of how much money has been spent?
I think so. A lot of times we always advocate for investment in different sectors of the economy. And yes, very well, we've had a lot of instances, the federal government have alluded to the fact that they are signing a number of values. I think earlier this year, about 1.4 billion was invested in the oil and gas sector for upgrading of our refineries. But a major problem, in my own opinion, is the fact that we do not really maintain this stuff. Because go back in time and check our financials of these local state refineries that we have. If you look at the financials of Kaduna refineries, for example, for 2020, you realize that they didn't make any form of revenue. And yet they actually spent a lot on CAPEX and the current expenditure, giving them a loss of over 5 billion naira. The same thing again for Port Harcourt refineries. So it's a big question for analysts out there. And Nigerians are like, where is this money going to? And the truth is, in my own opinion, I do not see it. I don't see the threat, because we say we have the capacity to produce about 1.2 to 1.8 thereabout million barrels per day of crude oil. But the truth is, we are really facing our enemies from petrol, and we cannot continue relying or expecting foreigners to come invest in this sector of the economy. NBS data on NBS on capital importation tells you that foreign investors do not look to oil and gas. If you check the numbers there, you realize that agricultural sector, banking sector, those are the areas that attract this form of FDIs and FDIs over the years. Oil and gas is like top 15, and that's last on the barrel. So it tells you that investors do not see this sector of the economy as a viable place to put their money. So say we want about $3 billion investment in oil and gas. well, we know the demand will probably rise due to the fact that our population is increasing daily, but the investors are not likely. The investments are not likely. So that's true. And where we are spending the previous investments, I do not think. We are now at the mercy, hoping that Dangote refinery is going to help push us out of our quagmire. Importation of petrol has taken a huge amount of our forex in time past, and it's not getting any better. That's the truth.
Okay, so you're really touching on a really sensitive topic that we've touched on a few times, and that's the divestments we've seen in the industry. Private investment has been part of Nigeria's oil and gas sector from the beginning, literally. But we've seen that trend in recent times, and you're saying that now Nigeria might be at the mercy of Dangote's refinery to sort of help balance or maybe even meet up to the needs. But aside from the things you've mentioned, what do you think is driving investors away from what is still quite a lucrative industry, regardless of the conversations happening at COP23, and we'll get into that just a little bit. But there seems to be a divestment trend from Nigeria's industry, and we're also seeing these same people invest in these oil and gas sectors in other countries. Is there something more that's driving investors away from Nigeria?
Well, okay, yeah. So right from time past, our major problem in Nigeria or government-owned corporations has always been a form of transparency and perceived corruption. I'm saying perceived because I don't have evidence to back that up. But yes, Nigerians and investors alike do not see as much transparency in much of this organization. And a lot of times, not administrations, they've been calling for the privatization of the NNPC. And so a lot of other analysts have come up and say, oh, please, remove subsidy so that we can buy share at market price. That is going to probably encourage most of their oil marketers and encourage foreign investors to come to this sector, because then they feel, oh, okay, it's more like a capitalist system. It's more like you are doing you're paying or you're earning based on your performance in the market. But right now, we're really not seeing that form of transparency. For example, what's his name again? Adeleru. Sometime early last year, so is one of the oil and gas firms and divested into Adeleru Energy. So it tells you that it do not see as much prospect anymore. And then, when it comes to Nigeria's prospect in terms of our oil and gas, now the world has moved away from petrol, which we have so adamantly held on to. So if you look at the likes of multinationals like Total, you realize that they moved from Total to Total Energies and Markets. And it tells you that they are trying to subscribe to the reality of the world. Other top countries have moved away from petrol. They're moving to other renewable energies. Why we still feel, because we have crude oil and we have demand for petrol, because of that, we should hold on to it. But big news. Most hotels in Nigeria now are now trying to look for other sources of electricity. You see them trying to install solar panels. So it tells you that they do not want to power their generators anymore with fuel. They want to look for other sources. And we have sun in abundance, so that's like a big win for them if they're able to do that. But Nigerian investors and foreign investors do not see as much transparency in our corporations. There's a perceived corruption from that sector, and it also captures the fact that we are moving away from petrol in terms of the global world, while Nigeria is probably still holding on to it.
Okay, so Sammy, I'm going to stick with that point, because as we're speaking right now, the 23rd session of the conference of the parties to the United Nations Convention on Climate Change is currently on. And President Muhammadu Buhari is there, as well as many other African heads of states. Now, one of the main conversations is focused on the net zero target worldwide. But the question remains for countries like Nigeria that have such a high dependency on their hydrocarbon industries is how will this drive towards a net zero world affect Nigeria's ability to fully optimize its hydrocarbon industry? It's not just a question for us, but while we're focusing on Nigeria, if a world is moving away from petrol, moving away from diesel, these are products that are easy for us. These are products we've been making money from for many years. What then happens to us? Because there are some who believe that this drive with the fourth industrial revolution is of the West, and that the West needs to allow countries such as Nigeria to optimize to a certain level the resources they have at their hands in order to make more money and then to bring up their economy. What do you think about this conversation that's ongoing right now?
Yeah, well, the conversation around net zero emission has been going on for a number of years now, and the truth is that Nigeria has tried to be at least in some of this conversation over the past few years. In my opinion, I do not really see us, in the short term anyways, I do not see us really being able to achieve this due to the fact you already said it anyways. Nigeria is still actually dependent on commodities that are so much reliant on this carbon substance, and that's why I feel we do not seem like, at least in the short term, again, like a country that would achieve that in the short time. But when you look at the fact that our transportation industry is, in fact, when you look at the number, it's actually alarming and scary, because the amount of vehicles we keep importing that would, of course, is against what we are buying for. The amount of used vehicles and unused vehicles that we do import, motorcycles, generators, is only high, because right now there's a high demand for generators because electricity is so unreliable, and most of our businesses rely on electricity. So, of course, we do not see ourselves getting to that point, but it's a step in the right direction that the president is able to go for such a conference and give his own input. And I'm sure he would be getting some other stuff from other top leaders that we will probably integrate into our system here. But for the short term, we do not picture it. We do not get to that point. No, I don't see it in that.
So will we still be able to use these same hydrocarbon resources? Who's going to be buying? If we have a world that's agreeing on a net zero target, a world that we're hearing countries from like 2025 and 2030 banning the use of diesel and petrol powered vehicles, who then is going to buy what we're producing? Isn't the share of what we're producing going to reduce, and the resources and the revenue coming in going to also reduce as the world takes this new direction?
Okay, so Nigeria over the past few quarters have been trying to diversify the revenue, and that is why you see them trying to walk away from oil income and trying to boost their non-oil revenues. So there is a need for us to be able to reduce our reliance on crude oil exports. That's one. Nigeria will continue to use diesel and petrol fueled vehicle at least for the short term. In fact, in my opinion, we would use it at least in the next 10 years or 20 years if possible. So I don't think that there's going to be a major problem there, but in my sense is that when we produce petrol, now we want to boost our refineries. Dangote is going to be refining. We want our local refineries to also start operating. And again, it then becomes a local sale vis-a-vis other neighboring country sales. So we might not necessarily be making as much money from other countries of the world, but I'm sure if Nigeria is still using diesel and petrol fuel vehicles, a whole lot of other neighboring countries around us would still be using, and they do not have as much fuel as we do, so they will be buying from us. So yeah, there's always a market. And then one thing about transformation and metamorphosis is that when a particular system is growing, that their recycling is going to another system. So it's more like you have a top-rated country that's developed economies. When they make policies there and they're trying to recycle one of those systems they have, they move it down to the middle and the developed economies. And the same way, that's how it moves downwards. So Nigeria is definitely not a developed economy. So we would still be using fuel, and then we'll be selling to countries around, neighboring countries around us, most especially African economies anyways. So that's my take. That's my sense.
All right. So there's also no way we can talk about Nigeria's gas industry, which is a large part of this conversation, without talking about gas flaring. Nigeria is the 7th largest gas flaring country globally. The country is surpassed only by Russia, Iraq, Iran, the United States, Algeria, and Venezuela. Nigeria has also continued to miss gas flaring deadlines, and that's not all. Nigeria reportedly flared about 85.4 billion standard cubic feet of natural gas, losing $510 million. Samuel, why is Nigeria literally just letting money waste? So there is the part of the conversation you've mentioned earlier about sort of incorporating this gas into the power sector for Nigeria and electricity. A lot of people mention that as well. But beyond that, there's money to be made. Why is this money that's here wasting for Nigeria?
So it takes us back to our conversation earlier when we said that Nigeria, like one of Nigeria's problems is maintenance and transparency and the same perceived corruption. So because most these agencies are not totally privatized, they do not tend to care about it because it's one regime after another. And yes, we know that we are actually wasting these vast resources that could be used to power our electricity, that could be used into making another form of energy. But of course, we're not doing that. And my major take is that we do not care. Now, when I mean we do not care, I don't mean the government now or facing someone directly, but the fact that it is a public corporation, and there's this perception, even while growing up from secondary schools, when we learned about public corporations, there's this really tendency for lackadaisicality of uncaring thoughts towards public corporations. So when you look at gas flaring, our refineries not being at par, and other forms of federal corporations, we see that they do not really function as expected. So it is not the fact that they do not see these opportunities. They just do not care. They do not want to take the step that is needed. Nigeria right now is in high demand for LPG, cooking gas, and it's crazily high. Right now, at some point, they're selling a 12.5 kg for around 8,000, 9,000 naira, something that was sold for about 3,500 about 6-7 months ago. So it tells you that we have a problem, and we have a supply problem, we have a demand problem. We have these raw materials, we have these crude materials, and hence, whenever there is a stumbling block for importation of some of these things, we just cannot supply, we just cannot meet demand, local demand, and that's a problem. For a country that has gotten independence since 1960, and
we're still struggling. So, Samuel, just give me a yes or no on this, because you mentioned diversification earlier. Do you think Nigeria is on the path to fully diversifying away? Are we making progress in diversifying away from a dependence on the oil and gas industry? A yes or no will do.
Oh, okay. So we did an analysis.
A yes or a no, Samuel? So, yes, I can hear you. So is it a yes or a no?
Okay, yes or no. Wow. That is a very nice question, but no.
Okay, but no. We'll leave it at that. I think we'll have to pick up the conversation from there, because there's the conversation around where we are in the value chain. We're at the beginning, then at the end of the chain, these finished products come back to us with no value added internally, but with Nigerians having to spend a lot of money to purchase these things. And then also the diversification conversation. Samuel Oyekanmi, thank you so much for joining me. Unfortunately, we're out of time for now, but we do look forward to speaking to you another time.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. All right, so we're going to move straight into NC4 to watch. It's on the other side of this very short breaker. And as we wrap things up, let's give you a few stories we're keeping our eyes on. Now, Zimbabwe earned more in tax receipts and other income in the third quarter of 2021 than previously forecast. The Zimbabwe Revenue Authority collected 117 billion Zimbabwe dollars, about $1.2 billion in the third quarter, and that's above its target of just under 99 billion Zimbabwe dollars. COVID-19 has dealt a massive financial blow to ports around the world, and South Africa's Transnet is not left out. The state-owned rail logistics group reported a record net loss of 8.4 billion rand for the financial year ended March 2021. This is compared to a 7.9 billion profit in rand, that is, in its prior financial year of 2020. The Kenya electricity generating company KenGen has released its full year financial results for the financial year ended June 2021, reporting a 7% profit before tax increase from 13.79 billion Kenyan shillings to 14.76 billion. The board of the NSE listed company recommended a dividend payout of 30 cents per share, which comes to 1.98 billion Kenyan shillings to be paid to all shareholders. And African countries are courting European Union members to reallocate their unused reserves at the World Bank and the IMF towards supporting cash-strapped economies that are weighed down by debt and reeling from the effects of the pandemic. This reallocation, together with trade deals and an end to inequity, such as global vaccine distribution and certification, are critical to future relations with Europe. And that's Business Edge for today. Thank you so much for joining us. Our social media handles at News Central TV. Download our mobile app, follow us on YouTube, and of course, watch us on all the platforms we are available on. I'm Tolulope. Adeleru Balogun. See you soon.